Hello, I'm Ian Rutherford, president of AquinasandMore.com. Today we're going to be talking about missals, the kind of missal that you take to church, not the kind of missal that you fire. We're going to be talking about several things. First, what is a missal? Why to have one? The different types of prayers at the Mass, 4 different parts of a missal, how to use your missal, and then the different types of missals so that you can make a decision about buying your own. So first of all, what's a missal? A missal is a book that you own that you take to church to follow along with the prayers and readings at Mass. A lot of times a parish will provide missalettes in the pews that may have the readings and prayers in them, and they're changed out seasonally. Having your own missal lets you take all these readings home to think about them ahead of time. So why have a missal? First of all, you can prepare for Mass before you get to Mass. So for example, you can read the readings the night before or the morning of Mass and think about them before you get there to church. Secondly, it's possible that your parish has lousy sound in the church, so you could be unable to hear the readings and prayers at Mass, or you could be distracted by your children, other people's children, or just other things going on that are keeping you from fully participating in the Mass. Also, a church may not provide missalettes, and sometimes the missalettes that the church provides are abbreviated and don't have all of the different parts of the Mass in them. So they may be missing some of the prayers, they may only have the actual citation for the scriptures that are being read at Mass, but not the whole readings. So it's good to have a missal of your own because it provides all of that for you in your own book. Also, a missal has extra devotional prayers that you can use for preparation before Mass, Thanksgiving after communion. It also has things for adoration, for going to confession. So your missal has all of these things that you can use at church that may not be in the missalettes provided by church. So, a couple of things that you need to know about the prayers at Mass. There are 2 different types of prayers at Mass, the ordinary and the proper. The ordinary of the Mass is the part of the Mass that is pretty much the same every week. So the Kyrie, the Gloria, the Lamb of God, the Eucharistic prayer. There are 4 or more Eucharistic prayers that can be used for Mass, but they're always going to be one of those specific prayers that's used. So these things don't change. They're the ordinary parts of the Mass. The other part of the Mass is the proper. The proper of the Mass is what is proper to a specific day. So for example, there's certain prayers that are said on the Feast of a Saint or on the different Sundays of Advent. These prayers are all proper to that particular day. And having a missal lets you follow along and know exactly what is being prayed that day. A missal has 4 different parts in it. It has the ordinary of the Mass, so that you can have the prayers that are said every time that you go to Mass. It has the propers for the Mass, so the prayers that change on every Sunday or weekday. It has a 3rd section, which is the proper of saints and feasts, so there are specific Masses that always happen each year on specific days. So for example, the February 2nd is always the presentation of Jesus in the temple. And so it doesn't matter what year it is, that happens on that day. So that's in a section of the Missal by itself. The final part of the Missal is called the Treasury of Prayers. The Treasury of Prayers typically has extra prayers for outside of Mass, like the Rosary, the Stations of the Cross, prayers for adoration, prayers for going to confession, things like that that are good devotional prayers to have as well. So now let's go ahead and take a look at how to actually use a missal. So this is a typical missal. This is the St. Joseph Sunday Missal. So we're going to look at the different parts of this book so I can show you how to use it. At the beginning of the book, you'll find a section which has the calendar for the liturgical year. This calendar shows you what page to go to for each different day of the year, for all Sundays. So for example, if it is 2016 and it is January 1st, that's the Feast of the Mother of God. So you go to page 168 to follow along with those proper parts of the Mass. And this works for all the years up through 2029. Most missals will be good for decades like that. The St. Joseph Sunday Missal also has a guide that you can purchase every year, which has all of this information for just that year in it. So for example, you have one of these missals that's older and does not have the calendar up to date, you can just buy the little missal guide and continue using this missal. The next section of the missal is the ordinary of the Mass. The ordinary of the Mass is that part of the Mass that doesn't change. So you have your introductory rites, the greeting from the priest, and then write a blessing and sprinkling if you're doing that at Mass. But you'll also notice that there are sections in here that say turn to today's Mass. What that means is you go to the proper for that particular day. So, for example, back here, if it is 2016 and January 1st, page 168 is where we'll go to find the propers for this particular day. So we'll go forward. And here we are, page 168. This is the Solemnity of Mary, the Mother of God, January 1st. So this is where you would go whenever the Missal says, as in today's Mass, or go to today's Mass readings. So for the readings here in the ordinary of the Mass, you would come over here and you would find them right here. There's the first reading for that Sunday. And then the responsorial, the second reading, the Alleluia, and the Gospel. And you would do that for the entire Mass. As you go through here, you'll keep finding parts that say turn to today's Mass. So you just keep flipping back and forth. I also said that there was a third part of the Missal called the Proper for the Saints. So back in the back is that section of the Missal that is for the particular feast that always occur on the same day. So for example, March 19th is the feast of St. Joseph, spouse of the Virgin Mary. So this is where you would go for the parts for that Mass. March 25th is the Annunciation, so that's where you'd go for that. And then at the back of the Missal, you have your Treasury of Prayers, which has morning prayer, night prayer, Stations of the Cross, the Rosary, things like that in it. So as you're flipping back and forth in your Missal, how do you keep from getting lost in the pages? Fortunately, most Missals have a couple of ribbons in them. So what I typically do is put one ribbon in the ordinary of the Mass. So I'll start at the beginning of the Mass for that day and put my ribbon in there. So that's where I'll start for that. And then I'll find the Sunday that I'm on. So back when we were saying we were on the first Sunday of the year, page 168, I'll put this ribbon there before Mass. So that way, as I'm following along with the Mass, I can go through here, and then as I turn my pages, I'll put this ribbon back there, and if I need to go to the other section, I can just grab the ribbon and flip over there to that, and then back to the ordinary of the Mass. Now, something to note about the Mass is that the readings for the year go in cycles. So as you'll see at the beginning here, at the top, it says this is year C for these days, for these years, year B and year A. What this means is that on the Sundays of the year, there's a 3-year cycle for all of the readings. So every 3 years, you'll get the same readings. So you can tell what year you're in by looking at your Missal here. So in years 2013, 16, 19, those are all of the years for year A. And then the following year will be year B. In the weekday Missals, weekday Masses, the readings follow a 2-year cycle, years 1 and 2. And so if you have a Missal with weekday readings, it will have those as well. So let's look at the different types of Missals. First of all, you have a Missal like the St. Joseph Sunday Missal. This Missal is, as the title says, only for Sundays. They also have weekday Missals that go with it. You can get them in 2 volumes. These Missals are good from Advent to Pentecost, and then volume 2 goes from Pentecost back to Advent. So you get a full set of St. Joseph Missals. You'll have 3 total Missals. They're nice because they're a handy size, easy to carry, not too heavy. The St. Joseph Sunday Missal also comes in multiple types of covers. So you have the black hardback Missal. This is more of a traditional look. They also have a nice flexible brown vinyl cover that you can get. They also have a nice zipper cover Missal, which I really like. This is great because it protects your Missal. It has nice leather corners, or leather cover with flexible corners, so if you drop it, you're not tearing up your pages. And here's the Missal on the inside, brand new, so it's sticking because of the gilded pages. But anyway, so it's nice and contained, keeps it nice and clean and safe. The St. Joseph Sunday Missal also comes in a large print version as well. The other major missal is the Daily Roman Missal. The Daily Roman Missal is great if you like everything in one place. This missal has both the Sunday and weekday readings in it, so you can take this one missal to all the masses you go to, and you don't have to worry about remembering which one to take with you. In the Daily Roman Missal, the ordinary of the Mass, instead of being at the front, like in the St. Joseph Missal, is here in the middle. It's marked with these red page edges so that you can find it easily. The Missal's a little bit bigger than the St. Joseph. The pages are a little bit thinner, so they don't have to make it too thick, so the paper is kind of see-through. The other interesting thing about this missal that is good depending on what type of parish you go to is that parts of the Mass are in both Latin and English, so that you can follow along if your pastor does the Mass in Latin and English. So for the ordinary of the Mass, for example, you have the Latin and English side by side in this missal. The Daily Roman Missal comes in a few different formats. You have the hardback missals, both in a burgundy and black. It also comes in leather in black, and then there is a large print version, which is pretty huge. It weighs several pounds. It's bulky. It does definitely have larger print, but you'd want to make sure that you really want a missal that weighs a lot before you take this with you to Mass. The other types of missals that are available are a monthly missal. So this comes as a subscription. This is the Magnificat. The Magnificat is sent to you every month throughout the year, and it has all of the Masses for the month in it. This is both Sundays and weekdays, and it also has morning and evening prayer. It's not exactly like in the Liturgy of the Hours, but it does have a morning and evening prayer in it, so that if you like to do that devotion, you can do that from this missal. The Magnificat also has reflections for the month in it, and it, like the Daily Roman Missal, has the ordinary of the Mass in the middle of the booklet, marked by red, so that you can follow along. Other than that, it has the same parts as the other missals. The Magnificat also comes in a large print version, so if you'd like a large print missal but don't want the heft of the Daily Roman Missal, you can get a subscription to the Magnificat large print edition. The other type of missal is the St. Joseph Sunday Missal. That's a yearly production. This missal has all of the Sunday Masses in it for 1 year. So the calendar for the year starts on Advent, the first Sunday of Advent, and runs until the Feast of Christ the King at the end of the year. So you would get this missal if you just want a handy one-volume book. You only go to Mass on Sundays, but you'd like all the Mass in one place for the entire year in a nice, easy-to-carry volume. This is more of a newsprint type of missal. They're inexpensive. Again, the ordinary of the Mass is marked in red at the front, and then it has the different parts of the Mass, like the other missals, throughout afterwards. And then it also has in the back a little mini hymnal that if your parish uses these, then you can follow along with the hymns in the back of this missal. Thank you for watching our video about how to use a missal. We hope you enjoyed this and will share it with others who also are interested in learning how to properly use a missal. If you have suggestions on other videos that we should shoot explaining other things about the Catholic faith, please share in the comments below. Also be sure to subscribe to our channel so you get alerts when we post new videos. Thank you for joining us. I'm Ian Rutherford. This is AquinasandMore.com.